I'm going to tell a story here that I realize is going to be a lot like the drought stories that we've all had all over the state over these last couple of years. And I want to tell it not so much to talk about the drought itself, but to talk about the community's knowledge of the drought, our understanding of the rivers, the reservoir, all of our water, all that system that sustains us. So let's go back again to that late summer of 2007, August and September. The rivers are starting to run low, and all 4 counties are making pretty heavy use of the Bear Creek Reservoir. After all, it's summer and water demand is high. As for Athens, we were going kind of gingerly on the North Oconee River, in part because of its inability to really successfully assimilate our wastewater just a little bit downstream. In August of 2007, there was a fish kill on the North Oconee River. The state guys never really pinned the problem on the wastewater plant itself. I mean, the flows were very low, water temperature was high, dissolved oxygen was low. But on that day that the fish kill happened, the effluent, just by back of the envelope math, made up maybe a third or half of the river's flow when we had that fish kill. The wastewater plant's about 40 years old. It's outdated, it's overloaded, it's serving more people than it ever should have. It's going to be replaced, and that's great. As James Holland has said, that's not a very good answer to the problem we have on our hands, but the good news is the solution is on the way. So we're in 2007. We're not making very heavy use of the North Oconee River for that reason. We're making heavy use of the Bear Creek Reservoir because the Middle Oconee River is running low. And now all of a sudden, in late September of 2007, the drought is all over the headlines. People are starting to conserve water. We're counting the days. The papers are publishing the days. 90 days, 60 days water left. And people are really starting to get it. And I have to stop here and brag on Athens, because all the things you've heard about what a great job we did conserving water really are true. It was really encouraging and inspiring to see the community at large really acknowledge the threat, the problem we faced with the drought, and make a response to it. I mean, the mayor was saying, take a shower with a friend, and people were putting buckets in the shower and everything like that, and it really was great. People really responded. But what I realized was that all this talk about the reservoir level, how many feet it's at and how many days we have left, that was good and all, but nobody was really thinking about the river. And, in some ways, maybe what happened was unavoidable. We had to get water somewhere, but I think it's worth at least analyzing what happened. So we're limited on days of water in the reservoir. EPD gives us a special waiver to pump out of the Middle Oconee River again up to 15 million gallons a day to replenish the Bear Creek Reservoir. Their stated reason for doing that was that we had behaved so well in our conservation efforts to date. This picture is from several years ago. It's about 300 cubic feet per second, just to show a relatively normal flow, certainly not a high flow, at those shoals at Ben Burton Park. On October 4th, the USGS stream gauge at Atlanta Highway in Athens registered a river flow of 1.4 cubic feet per second. I called the USGS guys, and they said, yeah, we went out there and cleaned the mud out of it. It was 1.4. We measured it right there. We stopped pumping. The river came up a little bit. A few days later, it went down to 2.6 cubic feet per second. So the river went dry. This is 15 CFS on October 7th. I went and took that picture. So that's not even as bad as it got. I ran these 2 pictures in the flagpole to try to get that story out there about what had happened to the river. Not to say we shouldn't drink water, but just to make sure that people knew what was going on. I don't think that story got as wide of a distribution as it really needed. So it's interesting to me that here in this community where people obviously care, where we're really interested in good stewardship of our resources, and where people responded so incredibly to the need for water conservation, that we still didn't have a full understanding of our resources, of the systems that sustain us. And that's the natural systems and the engineered systems. I mean, we have a mix of them here. You got 2 rivers, you got a pump storage reservoir, and all this stuff. And so it just made me realize that we really need some baseline background knowledge. We really want to do our best to help people understand what it is that sustains us locally prior to that crisis hitting. Because once the crisis came, all we could do was be retroactive and say, look what happened last week. We certainly did have those concrete lessons. Like everyone in North Georgia, we saw very clearly that up here, high in a watershed that's not a very big watershed after all, population growth plus those cyclical drought conditions are going to do this. We saw that pump storage is no panacea. I mean, sure, it's good there are not more dams on the river itself, but it doesn't solve all the problems. And meanwhile, there are more pump storage reservoirs in the works in Jackson County, just upstream of us, in the North Oconee River Basin, not the Middle Oconee, but certainly here in the basin. And south of Athens, in the Appalachia Basin, Oconee and Walton counties are partnering to build a pump storage reservoir on Hard Labor Creek. So it's something we're going to see more of. It really is a nice river here in Athens. This is on the North Oconee. down alongside UGA's Whitehall Forest, just a little ways above that Devil Shoals Mill Dam. And there really is some nice paddling here in town if you know where to go and what you're doing. But needless to say, when it comes to both water quantity and water quality, there's some things to think about here in terms of what the upper basin is sending downstream. And all that is more important as we look at things basin-wide, whether it's that reservoir development here in the upper basin or the coal plant that's been proposed in Washington County in the coastal plain run of the river near Sandersville. And I know Altamaha Riverkeeper has been taking a hard look at the impacts on water quantity and flows that might come about if that coal power generating plant is built down there. It's occurred to me, and it's sort of hard to put my finger on it, but downtown here the river's really slack and it's not a moving, running, living thing. And I think that affects our community's understanding of the river. Being able to see it in town and seeing it as a living thing really helps. The good news is that the Oconee River's Greenway network is expanding. We're gonna go south from this point, hopefully in the near future, and make a destination of that old mill site. But I think it will be good when we can get this area more public. And of course, our Greenway network is expanding, hopefully even further down the North Oconee River and onto the Middle Oconee River, and that'll do a lot to help people get to know the river better. Meanwhile, if the Upper Oconee Watershed Network can continue its work, not only with the monitoring, but with bringing in new volunteers and acquainting them with the river, I think that's going to help as we move forward and face these challenges basin-wide. So thank you.